couple of kind of moving on to a little bit of a different area. What would you say is a common belief or idea that people have about recurve archery specifically that is wrong or maybe leads them astray or limits them? So something that they think, we touched on one area already today in terms of that aiming, dynamic movement. Some people think about the aiming. Is there another belief that
aiming is the top one, but we've touched that. But I really mean that is number one. That is the number one principle that I believe is wrong and yet dominates so much.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm going to go with one that's more controversial.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
And this is an elite conversation, but so often I would hear that poundage doesn't matter. My bow is fast enough to hit 70 meters. So what does it matter? A slow 10 is better than a fast 8. Well, of course it is.
Oh, yeah, that's the...
But a fast 10 is better than, a slow 10 is better than a fast 8. And of course it is, but that doesn't help any of us. I think for a long time in Great Britain, people on the team were shooting low 40 pounds and not for any reason. Yeah. Now, if you had tried consistently to shoot 50 pounds and it doesn't work for you, and you can look me in the eye and say, I tried it, doesn't work for me, fair enough. But so often I feel people just stopped because they didn't need to change. But I can say for someone who stopped at 44 pounds, I think I stopped at 46 because Justin Hoos shot 46 pounds and I wanted to be Justin in some ways. But once I tried 52 pounds, I cannot believe the bow just feels totally and utterly different to me. And my performance I could get from it was totally different. Now, whether that's because it worked with my technique, whether it worked because I was a consistent trainer, I didn't miss training, week in, week out, I wasn't someone who ever suffered from injuries. I believe, again, that's because I just never didn't do the work. And shooting a high poundage bow just feels like magic. And then shooting a 46 pound bow just it's not as forgiving. Now, again, we go back to the scientist in me says, well, it doesn't matter how fast the arrow's going. And this has got nothing to do with wind drift. This is how forgiving the bow is when I make mistakes. So it's not to do with wind drift. It's not to do with arrow speed. I just think it's harder to deflect a big, heavy thing than it is a light thing. I'd much prefer to deflect a ping pong ball than I would a truck.
Yeah.
But I don't really... so I don't know. I don't know why that 52 pound bow is more forgiving with a bad release, with a bow hand that was soft. I just know that it is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And then I have to do this big speech marks if you can handle it.
Yeah. No, that's a good caveat, I guess. But I think for anyone watching who's on 42 pounds, don't go to 52 immediately.
Exactly.
But I think I think the principle is very good in terms of, I do definitely think the poundage also has an impact because, it is just common sense. It's physics, right? It goes back to the analogy of the arrow going to the target faster. But I think a good thing that you mentioned on there about is your training, like the amount of training you were doing as well. Whatever poundage, I like to think of it as a certain poundage has a certain maintenance level of work you need to do for a certain person. So like some people, like for myself, I'm a little bit less kind of built, I'm not so stocky. So for me to shoot a high poundage, I know that I need to shoot a lot of volume, I need to shoot a lot of arrows, a lot of bow training. Where someone who's a bit bigger build, generally a bit bigger, or maybe they go to the gym or whatever, they might need to shoot less arrows. So it's about knowing for you what that level is. Can you get away with shooting 52 pounds on maybe 500 arrows a week, or does it need to be 2,000 arrows a week? Very different numbers. But I think it sounds like you were very self-aware of what you were doing, and you knew, what you were doing there as well.
I think you're giving me too much credit. I think I just had a routine of I get up and I go to the archery club and I shoot all day. I don't think I had masses of science or analysis behind it. I just was a big routine person and I didn't have any distractions. and I always just done it. I remember losing having the most traumatic losing results, missing out on Olympic teams. And I was still there back at the club training within a day or two. Whereas I know other people who then don't touch a bow for 6 months. It's just, I had a routine, and that it wasn't until I stopped my career, and then a few months later I picked up a bow. I was like, oh my God, this bow wobbles. I had no idea what it was like shooting a bow when you're untrained. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's why some of my teammates and other people I know talk about all these different things, and I'd never experienced that. I just thought I could aim really well and I was gifted. No, I'm not gifted at all. I just worked really hard, and I didn't realize how bad a bow aims when you don't train. I was oblivious to it. It's true.
Exactly.
It was a shock. I couldn't believe how hard it is to shoot when you don't train, because I had never not trained in 20 years. There we go.
And then you've got used to that, and that volume's built up, and you've got used to that poundage as well. And as well, for anyone wondering about the poundage, your body gets used to it quite quickly. And again, I'm not saying to like suddenly go up in poundage, but if you shoot a 42 pound bow, and then you think it's too heavy, so you then go down to a 36 pound bow, after a few weeks, the 36 pound bow doesn't really feel light anymore. You get used to it. So it's all about having that training in between.
It's really hard to distinguish between what is muscle memory and what is your capacity, because so much of what you think is your capacity is just muscle memory. Because I can shoot 53 pound bow, I can do 2 ends with a 45 pound bow, and then I can't get my 53 pound bow through the clicker. Now, I haven't lost strength in those 30 minutes. It's just muscle memory, but it's really hard to distinguish between which is which, because your body just adapts so fast.
And then gets used to it super quick.
Yeah.
Did you do when you were shooting? I don't think I ever. I didn't notice this particularly, but did you used to do the kind of shooting with extra poundage or like band around the bow, that kind of thing when you were training?
No, I didn't, and I wish I did. I didn't. I don't think I really explored. And also, I know I got my best results at 52, 53 pounds. I don't know what 56 pounds is like. I feel bad that you should do it in a scientific way. You should take the weight up, for over several months, and then until you've found out what's too much, how do you know, where your capacity is? And obviously, like Nespoli from Italy, was it 56, 58? He shot at the London Games, and that year he got the European record for the 720 and an Olympic gold medal, and he knows that was, that worked for him. Whereas I'm also, I wasn't perfect. Even though I was a full-time athlete, I still didn't test a higher poundage. Because it costs money. You have to buy a pair of limbs. You have to then buy a set of arrows. Every time you change weight, it's not quite £1,000, but it's certainly, north of 500.
Yeah, it's not cheap, is it?
Yeah, it's easy to just stay where you are. Oh, I'll stay at 44. And I remember saying that to an athlete, and he's like, he needs to go up. And he's like, so I need to buy new arrows and new limbs? I've only just got 2 bows and 2 dozen arrows. And I'm like, I guess it's not good news.